us, or God will use them to refine us.
Its word that lives in you has the power to create the new life in you. It creates godly desires.
When life is good, most people don't pray. They don't have the urgency to pray or the compelling need to pray. But prayer is the investment in the miracle you don't know you're going to need tomorrow.
He gives you insight as you worship. As you lift his name up, he opens your eyes to see the enemy's tactics.
Hey, my name's Ashley Andrew. I am part of Destiny Church in the Glasgow network, and I'm also a youth leader. What did I love about my time at Destiny College? I love being surrounded by a group of like-minded individuals from all nations in the world, and we came together to study God's Word. We came together to go more deeper into what God was saying to us individually and corporately. We just went through life together, but we also found God more deeply.
Hello, I'm Richard, and my time at Destiny College has been absolutely fantastic. It has been a blessing from God. It's provided me with a greater understanding of my faith, and I thank God every day for that.
Hi, my name is Gracia. I'm a medical doctor. I'm a consultant psychiatrist. My time at Destiny College was a time for refining the calling that God has on my life. As we go through life, God is calling us deeper into the walk with Him. We walked seeing God move in our lives, prayers answered, God showing us how to find answers through His Word and standing strong in times of challenge. It was an amazing time of reminding us of the power that we have in Christ.
I am so glad that you are watching today because we are in week 1 of Search Conference.
Hey there, buckaroos. I'm Clive. Just giving my pal Tex here a nice rest.
What we do with our doubts and where we go with our doubts will determine whether or not our questions will cripple us or God will use them to refine us.
Its word that lives in you has the power to create the new life in you. It creates godly desires.
When life is good, most people don't pray. They don't have the urgency to pray or the compelling need to pray. But prayer is the investment in the miracle you don't know you're going to need tomorrow.
He gives you insight as you worship. As you lift his name up, he opens your eyes to see the enemy's tactics.
Hey, my name's Ashley Andrew. I am part of Destiny Church in the Glasgow network, and I'm also a youth leader. What did I love about my time at Destiny College? I love being surrounded by a group of like-minded individuals from all nations in the world. And we came together to study God's Word. We came together to go more deeper into what God was saying to us individually and corporately. We just went through life together, but we also found God more deeply.
Hello, I'm Richard, and my time at Destiny College has been absolutely fantastic. It has been a blessing from God. It's provided me with a greater understanding of my faith, and I thank God every day for that.
Hi, my name is Gracia. I'm a medical doctor. I'm a consultant psychiatrist. My time at Destiny College was a time for refining the calling that God has on my life. As we go through life, God is calling us deeper into the walk with Him. We walked seeing God move in our lives, prayers answered, God showing us how to find answers through His Word and standing strong in times of challenge. It was an amazing time of reminding us of the power that we have in Christ.
Hey Destiny kids, I am so glad that you are watching today because we are in week 1 of Search Conference.
Hey there, buckaroos. I'm Clive. Just giving my pal Tex here a nice rest.
my name's Ashley Andrew. I am part of Destiny Church in the Glasgow network, and I'm also a youth leader. What did I love about my time at Destiny College? I loved being surrounded by a group of like-minded individuals from all nations in the world, and we came together to study God's Word. We came together to go more deeper into what God was saying to us individually and corporately. We just went through life together, but we also found God more deeply.
Hello, I'm Richard, and my time at Destiny College has been absolutely fantastic. It has been a blessing from God. It's provided me with a greater understanding of my faith, and I thank God every day for that.
Hi, my name is Gracia. I'm a medical doctor. I'm a consultant psychiatrist. My time at Destiny College was a time for refining the calling that God has on my life. As we go through life, God is calling us deeper into the walk with Him. We walked seeing God move in our lives, prayers answered, God showing us how to find answers through His Word and standing strong in times of challenge. It was an amazing time of reminding us of the power that we have in Christ.
It's what we do with our doubts and where we go with our doubts will determine whether or not our questions will cripple us or God will use them to refine us.
Its word that lives in you has the power to create the new life in you. It creates godly desires.
When life is good, most people don't pray. They don't have the urgency to pray or the compelling need to pray. But prayer is the investment in the miracle you don't know you're going to need tomorrow.
He gives you insight as you worship. As you lift His name up, He opens your eyes to see the enemy's tactics.
Hello everybody and welcome to Surge 21 Youth Conference. My name is Buchan. I'm the youth pastor here in Destiny Ministries, and man, we're so blessed that you're hanging out with us tonight, week 2 of Surge 21. I want to welcome everyone who's connecting online. I know during the countdown quite a few of you guys have been saying, hey, what's up? If this is your first time here, we want to say, hey, what's up, and welcome to Surge 21 Youth Style. Listen, I want to say a special shout out to any of the youth that are in Southside in Glasgow right now. So if you're in Southside in Glasgow in our building, I want you all to jump onto your phones right now. I want you to give us the hands up emoji, whether you're on the Surge Conference YouTube channel or you're on the Beat YouTube channel. Let me see those hands up in the air and say, what's up? Here in Destiny, we do have a youth ministry called The Beat. Now, The Beat is a youth movement for Jesus Christ. It's an acronym: belonging, empowering, aspiring, and trend-setting. That is who we are. And so we hang out every Friday and Sundays. And so I can already see some hands up in the air. What's up, Divine? And so if this is your first time here, guys, connect with The Beat. There's a link being dropped right now. We've got some leaders on the chat that are saying what's up, so make sure you connect with us. Now, after Surge 21 Youth comes to an end, we're going to be chilling next Friday, exact same time at 7 o'clock, for what we call Real Talk TV. Real Talk TV is when we come together, we talk about the unspokens of society, finding out what does God say, what does the Bible say, and they were currently exploring the doubts that we all face as teenagers. And so why not join us live stream or face-to-face and live streaming on the Beat YouTube channel. So make sure you're hanging out with us next week. Now, tonight is our second last event for Surge 21. And we have very special guests with us. We're talking about rock-solid relationships. And if you've got any questions for our guests tonight, stick them in the chat. Get them in the chat. We're going to pick them up and we're going to have these questions answered with our special guests. Now, I want you guys on the chat, I want you guys to drop the love heart emoji if you are ready to talk about rock solid relationships. Let me see those emojis dropping in. But now I want to introduce our guest for tonight. I want to introduce David and Stephanie York to Surge 21 Youth Conference. Hey, what's up, David and Steph? You guys doing okay?
Yeah.
Good, thanks.
Fantastic. Why don't you guys tell us a wee bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, and why don't we kick off by answering, how did you guys first meet?
No?
You go for it.
Right. I'll kick off, get it started. We actually met through a fellowship group that I was running in the south side of Glasgow. I'm part of Destiny Church, and I was tasked to run a group in Rutherglen, in the area where I grew up, and Stephanie, when she came to the church, was allocated to my group, so I had first dibs. I seen what I liked, and then I made my move quickly.
Quite right, my man. You liked what you saw and you advanced. Quite right. I like that. And can I ask, when did you both get married?
5 years ago this month, September 24th.
Wow. Fantastic. So you guys have been married for 5 years. And
Yeah.
let's kick off. So you guys met through Destiny Church. David claims that he was doing some pastoral duties with his Steph, but the reality was he was just playing the game, you know, just to kind of, hi, I'm David York, can I pray for you? All of that. Heard it, pal. We've all done that before. So that's how you guys met. Been married for 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys 2 questions to kick off with, right?
Yeah.
What are the benefits of being in a relationship?
I'd probably say security, but that wasn't something that was really that clear to me until we got married, and I remember just thinking, wow, this is forever, and I just felt very secure in the relationship.
I would say that I think when we come together as a couple and it's God's plan for you to be with that person, I think it's God has ordained that to happen, and there's fruit connected to that connection, and you're more effective as a couple when God's put you together. There's support, there's somebody you can always turn to, there's somebody that you pray with, so there's a lot of support there for each other.
So for Steph, it's all about security. For David, it's all about teamwork, yeah?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So let's ask this question for both of you. What is the number one value? What is your number one value in a relationship?
My number one value is honesty. Honesty is number for me.
Yeah. Mine would be trust or loyalty.
Brilliant. Why would you say honesty for you, Steph?
I think if you're going to spend the rest of your life with someone, you really want to know who they are. You're going to find out anyway eventually. But I think as well, truth is just so important, because if lies start to come into the relationship, it really causes so much conflict. And that's why honesty is the best policy, as they would say.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And you, David, you're talking about loyalty and trust.
Yeah.
Why?
I think I've not always been a Christian, so when I was younger, I became a Christian when I was 21, so I've had past relationships and they were always broken relationships. They always ended in heartache and tears, and I think what you begin to learn is that, or you learn that very rarely can you trust people, and very rarely are people loyal. And so for me, probably through past experiences, past hurt, loyalty and trust are really one of my number one top priorities for me being in a relationship, and I've definitely found that with Steph.
Brilliant. See, before we go any further, I want to say hello to anyone that's just connecting right now. Welcome to Surge 21 Youth Conference Week 2. And listen, if any of you guys that are tuning in have got any questions for David and Steph, just drop it on the chat, and we would love to ask David and Steph York. Now, before we go any further, guys, I want to set some boundaries, all right? First of all, we're not looking for the right answer, all right? We want to hear it real. We want to hear it raw. Now, The reason for that is because we all crave authenticity, right? And see here with the youth, right? We can smell it, right? You know, like, oh, I'm depressed, but God is good. Nah, I'm depressed, and you got to give that pain to God in order to see the significance of God move in your life. So, see, there's a reason why we decided to invite you guys to talk about rock solid relationships. It's because we really believe that you guys can bring that authenticity, that rawness to what we want to talk about. Now, when people think rock solid relationships, people would maybe think about their relationships with God, with Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. As important as that is, we want to focus on relationships with other people. So the questions that I'm going to ask you guys tonight, it's going to be about your experiences, your thoughts, even your struggles, based on your relationship with one another, and maybe some stuff in the past, but also some of the struggles of a relationship as well. Because the reality is, you guys have been through your teenage years. The challenges that you guys faced when you are 11 to 17, these guys, our youth, are going through them just now. And so we are here to talk about the reality of what relationships looks like nowadays in school. So let me kick off with this first question, right? What should a healthy relationship provide for the people that are in it? So let's talk about some of the youth that are in a relationship right now. What should a healthy relationship provide for the people that are in one at the moment?
Good communication.
Yeah.
Key. Open communication.
I think a healthy relationship. If you're a Christian and you have a certain set of beliefs and you want to live a certain way and that's not being reciprocated, then a relationship's a two-way street. It needs to be a healthy, open relationship that you're in agreement. Both people's needs are being met. I think everybody's different. Some people like to be heard, some people like to be touched, some people like to be given gifts. I think understanding what it is that your partner is looking for and trying to meet that need.
Okay, that's a good start. So we're talking about communication, all of that kind of thing. What about stuff in the relationship? Because, you know, we're all human, aren't we? We make mistakes. What would you guys say in a relationship for our youths? Is there anything that you would consider completely unforgivable in a relationship?
Unforgivable. For me personally, I would say it would go back to my top priority list of trust and disloyalty. I would be careful how I say it, because as Christians we try and everything's forgivable on it. But for me personally, it would be disloyalty, unfaithfulness. I would really struggle with that in a relationship. If I was in a committed relationship with Steph and that happened, then I would really struggle to go over that and process that. I think move forward.
Right.
I would agree with you in terms of to move past it. I think, forgiveness is not just a one-time affair. That would be pardon the pun, but each day you would be having to forgive again and again and again. And I think that would be the challenging thing for me. It would be having to being able to move forward and actually let it go. And I just know in myself I would really struggle with that.
Right. I hear you. See, for our youth that are watching just now, right, obviously you guys are a wee bit older. You all got a couple of kids. You guys are on the other end.
Okay, grey hairs.
Sometimes people ask this question: if you could write a note to your younger self, but you don't, what would you say, looking back at your younger self, about relationships?
About relationships. I don't know, because I think you go into relationships because you're looking for a need to be met. So I think I think you're more susceptible to going into relationships with the wrong people because you have insecurities and there's other stuff going on in life. I think if it was speaking to my younger self, don't throw away what's precious in the sight of God to just anybody. You know, God has created us to be with a specific person in this life, and it may take time for that person to cross our path. So what I would say would be, don't throw away what's precious to God to anybody, and I'm referring to sex when I'm talking about that.
What about you, Steph?
Yeah, to my younger self, I think probably that you collect baggage from every relationship that you're in. So if you're in multiple relationships, you carry that with you into the next, I guess, without even sort of realizing. So just bringing that back and saying to myself, if I'm going to go into a relationship, look at it with a goal in sight, and only get into a relationship if it's something that I see a future in.
Aye, that's
not
brilliant.
Not just because you're bored or need companionship, or but like I think that those are really easy excuses to get into a relationship. But I think really just look at it as a long time thing, and if you know early on that it's not, do the right thing and end it, and wait for that right person.
That's a good point you make, Steph, about with an end goal in mind, and not just going in one for the sake of it, and the reality is we all have baggage, so the less baggage that we can bring, the better for the other person as much as ourselves, Yeah. David, you're talking about sex and you're getting a bit carried away. We will touch on that topic. Before we touch on sex, let me ask a couple of other general questions before we touch on that. So let's talk about religion. Like, how important is religion or spirituality in a relationship?
I think it's very important, because I think you're talking about rock solid relationships. I don't think a rock solid relationship exists, to be honest, because relationships are up and down. We're human beings, as you've said. We're bringing all this baggage, we're bringing all this trauma for our past into the relationship. So you're putting two people who are broken, and God's bringing them together, and it's by His grace that we're able to see that through. I think having Jesus at the center of your life, not only at the center of your relationship, totally changes the way you see things, changes your commitment. The Bible talks about how we have to treat our wife and treat our husbands and stuff. So there's a different standard when we have God in our lives, and as humans we might not always meet that standard. We miss the mark at times, but when we sit and we reflect and we communicate and we have a conversation, it's a place to reset ourselves and refocus our eyes on Jesus. And I think if we never had Jesus, the type of morals that I used to have in relationships were totally different for the morals and the way I carry myself in a relationship now. So I think having Jesus is fundamental to a relationship. And if I never had Jesus, I would more than likely not be married, not have kids, still be living in broken relationships, in all kinds of sin and things that are not helpful for me in my walk with God. So I think Jesus at the centre of a relationship is fundamental.
Steph, just before we hear from you, I think it's really important to establish that the reality is, in any question asked, we can always play the Jesus card. Jesus this, Jesus that. And so I think what's so important for us is that when we're talking about Jesus, that there's a reason for it. We're not saying the safe answer. And it's something that you touched on, Davey, about if you didn't have Jesus, where you'd be. But actually, Jesus in the relationship, do you know what you're talking about? He actually heals the brokenness. He actually takes it to another level that is possible.
Yeah.
And so again, as we're talking about Jesus, like, we're not just saying the right thing. David and Steph, you're not just saying the right thing, because you guys know what it was like without, and you guys know what it's like with, and so you guys are saying that based on experience.
100%, yeah.
For our youth tuning in, we're not just saying this for the sake of, like, Jesus is the way, Jesus. No, it's genuine belief, it's genuine revelation. That's what it is. It's like, hold on, recognizing Jesus in a relationship actually enriches our love for each other. That's the reality, you know.
Yeah, I think when there's probably people who are further afield on their walk than us, who would tell us stuff that we might think, that's a bit cringy or a bit cliche, but we'll experience that stuff, and then it'll become a reality to us. And the youth are 15, 20 years behind us in age, so they're going to have to go and have their own experiences and stuff like that, and hopefully it'll become apparent to them how important Jesus is in a relationship. As I've said, I became a Christian when I was 21, so I had 2 decades, or not 2 decades because I wasn't doing stuff when I was that young, but maybe a decade of being in and out of relationships and other types of things that have solidified these relationships. Now that I can compare what it's like back then to what it's like now, and that's when I talk about saying Jesus at the centre. You're right, Buck, and I'm not just coming here and just saying Jesus for the sake of it. I'm talking about experience here, lived experience, and we are hoping that something we say here tonight is going to help the young folks who are listening. And let me just say something as well, Buck, and we're not actually that old. They're making a lot of comments about old and stuff. We're only 33, you know what I mean? So that's we're still the young team as well, you know what I mean? But just a wee bit.
Absolutely. The young teammate. I was Moss, a young teammate. Let me ask a couple of questions on those that on a different angle. Like, so obviously in school you make friends with a lot of different people, you know, different genders. And Steph, I want to ask you, do you think that opposite gender friendships can maintain that friendship without developing a wee love interest for each other? Think that's possible?
So, short answer, no. But when I was younger, I had lots of males that were friends, and I was totally naive to the fact that if they had a chance, they would have wanted to be in a relationship with me, and I didn't think that was the case. I was like, oh no, like, they're just friends and whatever. So I think even if you, like, so I felt like there wasn't anything there. So I just decided there's nothing there. We're just friends. But you don't know what the other person's thinking. And if it's not you with the feels, it's them with the feels. So I would say no. But I have lived a lot of my life having male friends up until actually I met David, because he knocked them all out. No. But I saw that wasn't helpful for me, because I'll tell you, like, just as an example, say David and I have had a day where I'm not feeling great about myself, and you know, and I'm like, oh, I wish he would maybe compliment me or something, and then suddenly, like, oh, my pal's there and he's messaging me, and all right, Steph, like, you're funny, you're this, you're that. And even though that might seem very innocent on the surface, it's a way in, you know, and I've been very naive to that, I think, in the past. So for me to make a decision and say, you know, my marriage or the partner that I have now, I want to focus on him, and I know that means not having, I don't need male friends. Why do I need male friends? I've got girl friends, you know, and that's all I need. So that was a bit of a journey for me, though. That didn't just happen overnight, because I can remember being a bit like, what? No, like Kenny or so-and-so or whatever, you know. And but yeah, I definitely see that now, that it's not helpful, particularly when you're in a marriage solid.
And in terms of relationships, do you think long distance relationships can survive?
I might answer this.
I I don't know. I've never been in. Well, actually, I have been in long distance relationships actually when I was in prison. So I have been in a long distance relationship, and in my experience, surprise, surprise, they don't work. People stray. There's disloyalty, and I don't know. I think it depends what age group you're looking at. It depends where the person his mind is at. It depends the level of maturity in the person, but I don't know. I wouldn't have a definitive answer because I believe there will be people out there whose long distance relationships have survived and are surviving. But I think it would depend on the people. If we're talking about in the context of marriage and the context of being Christians, then I would think that God would want us in the same place, in the same house.
Or at least the goal is to be back together as quick as possible or as soon as possible. You know, like if it was for some reason you had to be separated, it would only be temporary. It wouldn't be something that you're like, oh, we'll just see how it goes. That's not, you know, that's not an end goal. That's not something where you're thinking about getting back together. You know, yeah.
I think in a relationship as well that your partner needs to be a priority. If you love them or growing to love them and you care about them, you know how it is when you're in a relationship. You want to spend time with the person. You're excited about spending time with the person. So I think they need to be a priority. And if you live in the other side of the world, how much of a priority is that person, and how realistic is it that you're going to be able to have quality time with them if you're just on Zoom every night or you're just texting? You know, I think there needs to be a depth to a relationship if it's going to be lasting. And I don't know whether that can be offered in a long distance one, but I would say I'm not sure on that. But I think it would be from case to case that you would need to look at.
I hear you. You briefly mentioned that you did a stint in prison. I wish we had time to talk about that, but we are just going to have to behave like that comment never happened.
Well, it was related to long distance relationships. I was tapping into my experience again, wasn't I?
Listen, let me ask you this question on love. How do you know, and I want you both to answer this, how do you know when you love someone? Because hey, some of our guys, some of our male boys may be feeling that right now. Some of our girls may be feeling that, like they genuinely feel like they're in love. So how do you know when you love someone?
I think for me on a practical level, there's that buzz, there's that excitement. You just want to spend time with them, and I think you'll feel it. You know, to put a feeling, you feel it, and you want to express that to that person. I think there's a danger of confusing lust and love, and I think people can like.
What was the difference, David? What's the difference?
I mean, I'm no psychologist, mate, but
you don't need to be. You know the difference between lust and love, mate. Surely not.
Well, I think when you love somebody, there's a level of commitment, or there will be a level of commitment. You're not just in it for the good times. And I think when I was younger and lust was driving me, I was selfish, and I was in it for the good times, and I was in it to use and have my needs met. Whereas when you love somebody, you're looking at meeting their needs. You're looking at serving them. It's less about being selfish and how you can help them and please them, and you know.
I think that's it. The difference between lust and love is selfishness. What about you, Steph? How do you know when you love someone from a female perspective?
I think for me, it was definitely a mindset of I'm ready to give love and I'm also ready to receive it. So it was kind of, for me, it was a really, like, so my relationships before, I would have said, oh, I loved him, but actually when I look at my relationship now and how it is, and with God at the foundation of it, it just has something way more. Like in my relationships in the past, and it's not been with Christian men, I've I've always felt like there was something missing, and I just didn't know what it was because I hadn't experienced a relationship with another Christian. So for me, it was like night and day, and it was also that, like, I was willing to love someone and allow myself to be loved as well at the same time. And I don't know if that was just, just understanding, God's grace and the forgiveness as well. I think I just went through a wee bit of a transformation in myself at that point.
So let me ask you a bit of a controversial question, right?
Yeah.
Do you think there's such a thing as meeting the one at a young age?
Yes, I do, because I believe that God has handpicked our partners. I believe that he has, when David and I met, I was 28 when I met David, so I was, sort of older, I guess, certainly to the audience now, but I wasn't ready, and God knew when I was going to be ready for that. So if that happens when you're 17, I just took a while, but if it didn't take you a while, then yeah, I believe that it could happen earlier, and certainly in God's timing.
I would agree that I believe that you can meet the one. I think for the young guys that are watching us, like, that are Christians, that you're in a really great position, because like myself and Steph, we became Christians later in life, and it's no secret that would be a lot of baggage there, and there's a lot of experience. There's probably a lot of regrets as well. And one of the things that I would say is that I wish I became a Christian younger in life. God took me on a path for me to come to him, but and I value that, and I like that. But if I could have found God younger and got on the right track younger, then there would have been less baggage. So I think if you're young and you're a Christian, I think you're going to avoid a lot of heartache. I don't think there'll be no heartache, no drama, no baggage. But I think if you keep your eye on God and you try and follow Jesus genuinely follow Jesus, look to his word for guidance, look to leaders for leadership and guidance, be teachable and listen to what the people around about you are saying, because there's a lot of wisdom, there's a lot of experience, and the people that God has placed in leadership positions to help guide you through your life, to avoid the traumas, to avoid the baggage, to avoid the bad experience. But as human beings, we're wired a certain way. We're going to be attracted. We're going to see a nice looking lady. We're going to see a nice looking guy that we think, oh, he's hot or she's cute. And God has put a drive in us to be wired that way. So it's about how do we manage that drive in a way that's going to be productive, and it's going to help us find a partner and have a happy, fulfilling life with a partner that God has placed in front of us for the purposes of advancing his kingdom and making a difference on this earth as a team.
If there's anything that I would love our guys to go away with tonight, it's that comment. We hear this all the time. If I was a Christian younger, I wish I was a follow Jesus younger. And a lot of people think, yeah, but why? You hit the nail on the head. Baggage. Less drama, less baggage. For that simple reason, because we don't need it. We don't want it. Right, last question, right, before we move on to another topic. What age gap do you think is too big?
This is a tricky one, because I am more about stages in life as opposed to numbers, and I think we all move through those stages of life. And I think if you meet someone that's, of a similar mindset, then that makes sense to me. But obviously, someone really young and really old come from different generations almost, and I would find it hard to see how that would work. I wouldn't say, it wouldn't, but I would tend to look at more the stage that people are in. When I was really, when I was 17, I was very naive. I wanted to travel. I wanted to do all these things. So if I'd met someone who was already, you know, had a house, had this, had that, it just wouldn't have worked because we were in two completely different stages of life. And actually, in saying that, that has been a sort of point in relationships where you're like, actually, our lives are not going in the same direction. They're not, because we're in two completely different headspaces. Yeah.
Stereotypically speaking, right, girls are naturally more mature than boys in our teenage years, yeah? So I'm just saying stereotypically, that's just the company.
Say that, yeah.
So say a 15-year-old girl meets a 20-year-old guy, and they're both equally mature at that level. They both want the same things in life. They're both going in the same direction. But one's 15 and one's 20. Davey, if one of your kids turned into you and said, at 15, I'm going to be a 20-year-old, would that be okay?
I'd ask for his name and address immediately.
What reason?
Just take around and lay hands on him, say a wee prayer.
Lay hands, aye.
Lay hands. For me, that would be inappropriate. A 15-year-old is still a child. Maybe a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old, or a 15-year-old and 15, 16 maybe, because you know how people are in the same class, but they're a few months apart. But I think a 15-year-old, like any kid, because that's what you're talking about. You're talking about a child. No matter how mature you think, there is a level of growing up that needs to be done when you're that age, and that will naturally happen. That's a natural process for a child that age. And I think somebody who's 20 has been through that growing up stage. They're well into adulthood. And for me personally, I mean, not to mention it would be against the law, but for me, it would be inappropriate because, as Steph said, that's two different stages. And that, although it's only 5 years apart, it's a big gap, especially when the other person's under 15. Now, if you ask me, somebody who's 21 and 26, I don't think I would have a problem with that if they're at the same stage, you know, in terms of mindset. But I think when you're involving children, and it's 3, 4, 5, 6 years of difference, and for me, that's not really well
Okay.
I think would be productive.
Okay. Thank you. We're gonna move on, and we're gonna talk about sex. Before we do that, you guys on the chat have not yet dropped any question. Y'all are really quiet tonight. So make sure you take the opportunity to drop some questions on the chat so that we can ask Steph and Davey York.
How can we see the question? Are we able to see the questions, Buchan?
Yeah, you'll see them.
Questions or we come up to it?
So if you can see the chat facility, you should see the guys chatting at the moment. Can you see it?
Just
No.
No.
Just a chat between us, Buchan.
No, it's that one. There's another facility where you can actually see the chat on YouTube.
Right, okay.
Right, okay. That's okay. You can just fill
That's
it
all
out.
right. That's all right. We would
Chris
love
is
to
saying,
hear.
"Oh, if you see this, yes, we see you, Chris. We certainly see you." Right.
We would-
Let's
we would-
talk about sex. And the reason why we want to talk about this sex is because teenagers are thinking about this a lot. All right. And we want to talk about this topic because if we, the body, the church, can't talk about this, then where else can we talk about it? So here's my first question, right? If I'm in my teens, right, why should I save sex until I'm married?
Why?
I mean, I think what we were saying earlier, just about baggage and the chaos and the drama that it causes, yeah, that would be a huge one for me.
I know, but I want sex, so
Aye.
why
I think-
should I wait till I'm married?
I think to be fair, most people do, and I think most people will. But I think through experience, it is God has created it for a reason, for a man and his wife, and it's ultimately sin. And when we engage in sin, it produces death, as the Bible says. So nothing good really comes of it. And although we will get a nice feeling for a couple of seconds or whatever.
I know, I've been told this, but I love my girlfriend and I think we're ready to have sex. So why should I wait till I'm married?
It's a difficult one.
It's
a really difficult one because there's obvious attraction. I
think if you understand love, then that love. It's no love if you're having sex, and if to be blatant, it's taking advantage or whatever it may be if it's outside of God's word. And we really want to please God as well, and try and live the way He wants us to live. And lust is what you're describing. I really want to have sex. That's what you're describing. That's the natural desire. If you're in a relationship, you're close to a person, you really want to do these things. But that's love that you're describing. That's lust, because love talks about marriage before sex. Love talks about respect. Love talks about honour. It's not talking about just a wee moment to satisfy your wee lusty needs.
Physical needs.
But the Bible talks about there's a battle between the flesh and the spirit, and it's continuous. It's day and night. So there would be practical steps that you would put in place to try and avoid that. And I think accepting the fact that you do want to do that, you do want to express yourself in that way. Don't deny it. Don't try and put it in a wee box. It's that's the reality. Accept that that's the reality, and try and like I said earlier, use the leaders that are going about you and try and navigate that in a healthy way, so that actually the relationship will succeed. If you love the person, then you want to see that relationship succeed. And when the Bible talks about sin leads to death, if you have sex, then the chances of the relationship succeeding diminish greatly. So if you love the person, then it's about trying to do things right by them and by God.
And I think what David was saying about just being really honest about it and not pretending that it's not there and it's not something that you're going through, and being able to talk with each other. Because I know, that when maybe one of you's feeling weak, the other one might be a little bit stronger, and they can be like, okay, no, let's do something else, or let's and I think when you can open that conversation up, you can sort of help each other in it as well.
Mm-hmm. I think it has something to do with the earlier question about why is religion and spirituality important in a relationship. And you guys mentioned something about value. And I think there's something in that about saving sex until marriage is there is value placed on you by God. And that value is protected through marriage.
Yeah.
If you're just putting it about anywhere you go, you're spiritually devaluing yourself as much as physically.
Yeah. And I think as well, marriage is about commitment and being in an agreement or a covenant with God. And if a person's just lusting and they're just after sex, they don't need to enter into that agreement or that commitment if you're willing to just give them it. So you're right about the value thing,
And I would say, for any boys or any girls, if your partner's pushing you for sex, get rid of them. Because there is value on you. Honestly, like what we're establishing tonight is, see anyone that's just trying to get their end away, it's lust driven and it ain't love driven. It's true, isn't it?
I would agree, but I think in the defence of the lust merchants, because I think you can love somebody but also lust after them, and I think it's such a strong drive, that lust, that before we were married, in the pastoral chats that we had and having the accountability from people, there needs to be practical things put in place that will really heighten your chances of not falling to that sin. You know what I mean? Like, don't be in bed together, don't stay overnight with each other, don't lie down next to each other with no clothes on, don't watch this, it's no do's and don'ts, but it's just practical steps that are going to help you succeed in a relationship and protect and value that moment into marriage.
So let me ask this, right? What if our youth are in a relationship right now and they don't want to have sex, but they don't really want to tell their partner that. How would you deal with it? How would you advise them to deal with that?
They don't want to tell. I would ask maybe for what reason would we not want to talk about that?
Yeah.
And explore that. And then I think Steph said at the start, communication in a relationship is really, really key. And I think early on it's good to know who you're in a relationship, where they're at, what they're thinking, where they see their life going. Do they want kids? Do they not want kids? I think open communication from the get-go is really important. But to explore with the person, like, why do we not want to talk about that? Is it you scared that they'll leave you, and so forth? And if they do, then you'll establish that it wasn't love. It was just they were just trying there to use you or get their needs met.
I think what people are trying to avoid is rejection, but ultimately if it's something that you value, then it's always going to be a value. It's not going to be something that you're like, oh, I don't really care about that anymore. And I mean, when I met David and granted we were a bit older and we'd had our own sort of experiences, straight off the bat David had said that to me, that that we're going to remain celibate before we got married. And I was a fairly new Christian, and I can remember thinking, what? Like that seemed quite drastic to me, coming from relationships where I wasn't in a relationship with a Christian. So but straight off the bat he was like, that's how we're gonna roll, so if you're either in or you're out. And I love that, very upfront. And I think that it's like you're gonna be, it's the avoiding the rejection thing, and I think that you need to be clear with your intentions. And if you don't know what your intentions are, sit down and work out, what are my intentions here? What do I want out of this relationship? And if it's
I think as Christians as well, I remember one of the pastors saying to me, if you're not intending to marry this person, why are you wasting your time dating them? Like, as a Christian, you're looking for a husband or a wife. You're not just looking to play the field and get some experience. It's no, you're in it for a reason. So I think communication and clarity needs to be numero uno at the very, very start, so that because that person might be. Steph came back from another country when I met her, so I had to have conversations like, are you planning on leaving? Before I invest into this relationship, are you on the same page as me with this? And she had things that she'd asked me as well. So I think having open communication is really healthy. It brings clarity and it helps the people move forward and decide whether this is something I'm willing to invest in. And I think a lot of times we can invest, especially when you're younger, you invest in these relationships blindly and they fall apart and it leaves hurt. And then you think, oh, well, I'll try this one. And you do the same again. You just hope for the best. Then he hurts you or she hurts you and you move on. And it becomes that perpetuating cycle where you keep on doing that, and it just continues to lead to more baggage and more hurt and pain. And then when you finally find your wife or your husband, you then bring that into a marriage, and that's no easy thing to navigate. That stuff that you have experienced, that fun that you were having when you were younger, that lust that was driving you when you were younger, you will face it at one point. it will come up. There will be no skeletons in the closet, and it becomes a really tough thing to navigate with your wife, in my case, or your husband. It will make things a lot more difficult.
I think as well, if you're thinking about withholding values right from the beginning, think about what else you're going to be compromising on, and what other secrets you're going to have to be keeping, and what kind of foundation that would be for a relationship.
Oh, Steph just got real, guys. Steph just got real.
I just needed a warm-up, Bucking.
Nasha is asking us a question. Nasha is asking you guys, do you think it's possible for a Christian and non-Christian to have a good relationship? Don't hold back. Go for it.
No.
My friend who's a Christian, she married a non-Christian, and she always says to me, Steph, this is not the guy that God intended, but I made a commitment when I got married, but she's like, I know that we were unequally yoked. So this is something
What does that mean? Because that's heavy Christianese.
You're right. I had to ask her. I had to be like, tell me what that means.
I don't want to think about eggs and yolk. Like, what does that mean?
It's like having 12 eggs in one hand and a box of 6 in the other hand. Just your way down.
It's almost like you're from different planets. You know, that's really what it is. You're from different planets and you're trying to make it work.
Yeah.
And that's how difficult and challenging it's going to be, because you just can't. So, for example, because we're both Christians, if David and I have a challenge or something that we just can't see eye to eye with, we can both go to God and speak to God about it and say, God, help me to make the changes I need to make if it's me, or help David to navigate through this. You know, and that's something you don't have in a relationship with someone who's not a Christian. You don't have that, you know, or you don't have the prayer life that we have.
Yeah.
And these things. So that's what I mean about, like, imagine David wasn't a Christian and I'm like, can I pray for you? He'd be like,
aye.
For me, it just wouldn't work. Like Steph said it, it's like aliens. When you become a Christian, you become a new creation. It's not you're different for that person. You know, it's like there's wicked and righteousness, and the two of them can't work towards the same goal. Is that you're always just going to be, even on a spiritual level, you're always just going to be different.
It's just oil and water.
It's just not going to mix.
It's just oil and water.
And the person who's asking, maybe that you're in that situation, or you know somebody who's in that, and there's probably a desire in you to want to make that work. But the reality is, if you're serious about God, that can't work unless that other person becomes a Christian. And I know people who have been in these situations where they're in the relationships but they hope the other person will become a Christian. But you've got to look at the two sets of values. A Christian has complete different values, polar opposite values to a non-Christian, and it's whether who's going to influence who. Is the non-Christian going to influence the Christian? Are you going to start adopting their values, and then before you know it, God becomes less of a priority in your life, and the boyfriend or the girlfriend becomes more of a priority, and before you know it, they've put a wedge in between you and God, and you're no longer a follower of Jesus. Yeah. I think the Bible's very clear that we are not to marry non-believers. So I think based on that, I would be looking, if I was looking for a husband or a wife, I would be looking for a Christian straight off the bat. Like I wouldn't even entertain the thought of dating a non-Christian. I wouldn't even entertain it. And that's what Steph spoke about that earlier. For me, even speaking to Steph as a Christian, she was basically had been a Christian not that long as me, and for me, I had questions for the get-go. This is my values. This is where I stand. This is what I need to know. Are you willing? Are you thinking the same as that? Are you willing to adjust your thinking according to that? And I think when somebody's not a Christian, they'll say they will, but they won't. I'll come to church with you. We won't sleep in the same bed. But the reality is, you'll go for the couch to the bed. You'll go to church for a couple of weeks, and then before you, it'll be like, God, who's God? I'm not a Christian, right? Let's go and do this and go and do that, and God will be completely out of life. So I think it's very important to stay in your lane and date other believers if you're looking for a husband and something that's going to last and be valuable.
Wouldn't it be really sad to not let the woman or the man that you love in on something that you're so passionate about?
Would be tough. It would be tough.
The fact that you love this person and you just simply can't let them in to this area of your life that you're so passionate, you find identity, you find purpose, you find everything you need, but you can't let that person in. Wouldn't that be really sad?
I don't think it's an area of life. I think it's life. Christianity is not compartmentalized. It's not one area of life. Being a Christian is you're a follower of Jesus. This is all of you. It's your life. And I think if somebody's not a Christian, they can't be part of that. You know what I mean? It won't work. When I became a Christian, I was in a relationship, and the girl used to come to church and stuff, and she would profess Christ. But the reality is, she wasn't a Christian. Her motivation was wrong. She was doing it for me, and gradually we just drifted apart because I was a real Christian and she was just going to church. and I think it will become apparent that it won't work, and it will come to an end.
Okay, let's. The questions are now hotting up, which is good fun. Let's go back to talking about sex. All right.
Of course.
So these questions that I'm going to ask, right? These are questions that I discovered that everyone's asking, but not asking, all right? So it's not as if I've just come up with all these questions, Mr. 30-year-old man me, you know? So these are questions. I'm not going to ask what you just repeated, all right? Move on. So a question that someone's asking, right? And you guys I want you guys to think back to when you were in your teens, right? Is everyone really having sex?
Yes.
Majority, I would think. Aye.
In their teens?
What age? What's teens?
11 to 17-year-olds. Probably say 4. Aye.
I mean, 11, maybe a bit young. I
11,
think maybe
yeah.
13, 14, 17. I would safely say yes. 14 and 17.
Okay. How far is too far?
As a Christian,
Mm-hmm.
I think more than a kiss. Anything past a kiss, probably. As hard as that may be, and I know that might not be the reality for people, and people may have overstepped that mark and may have gone a bit further. But I think anything past a kiss is too far. Remember, we're speaking to Christians. We've chose to follow Jesus. We're not speaking to the world here. In the world, nothing's too far. Everything's on the table. Anything's acceptable. Do what you want. Feel how you want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, go with this person one week, go with that person the next. But we're talking to Christians here, people that have chose to follow Jesus.
Okay.
And anything for me past a kiss would be too far.
Steph, what's your thoughts?
It's just really, I think I want to say off the bat that it's really hard and really challenging, you know, and it's not that people don't want it. In fact, you're flooded with this every single day, you know, with thoughts, you know, with everything you see on TV, you know, in the media and all that kind of stuff. So you're not only battling with your own thoughts, you're constantly bombarded with images and all sorts throughout the day. So it shouts louder than what God says sometimes, you know,
Yeah.
and I think that's the problem, you know. It's like, yeah, and I think knowing, again, just stepping back and saying what are my values and what is okay for me, and looking to God and saying what's okay for Him. And like, you know, you said like Christianese and stuff, and there is a lot of that, but from my experiences in relationships where I have gone too far, I just, you know, I hate that now. I hate that that's something that I have done and something that I carry as well. And not to sort of lament the regret, but just more so, just, you know, get serious about it. It's not recreational, you know, and I know that we are brought up in the world where it is recreational. But as Christians, that's not where we stand.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, these are great answers. I'm telling you, it is heating up in the chat. So let's go with some more questions on the chat, right? So AB is asking, what if you have sex with the one and only person before marriage and end up marrying them? What would you say to that?
You're still bringing a lot of baggage with that person into that marriage, because you've
because you might be marrying them because you've had sex with them, and it might not be the person that you like to squash your guilt, as opposed to, is that the person that God has set out for me?
I think as well, from my experience, I think the danger of having sex with people before you marry them is that you know, say God does put somebody in your life and this is the person that you're meant to marry, and you have sex with them. When you have sex with people, you look at them different. There's an air of contempt. there's something changes. You see them differently, and I think it's got the potential to ruin something that could have a future, and also that sacred moment between a man and a wife. It's very, very sacred, and it's a holy moment that God has created only for after marriage. So I think the devil can, or whatever it may be, you yourself can convince yourself, I'm going to marry this person, so therefore I can sleep with them. Well, I think you can sleep with them when you put a ring on the finger. When you, if you're going to sleep with that person because you're going to marry them, why not marry them now?
Yeah.
What are you waiting for?
Yeah.
If you know 100% that you're marrying this person, propose, commit, get married. Don't get married. You know, don't just have sex for the fun of it, and don't just get married because you want to have sex.
All right, but what if they've already had sex? Like, what if that's already happened? Like, are you suggesting that it's doom and gloom? Like, is God not going to bless it? Like, what if they've already had sex?
Yeah, I'm not saying God's not going to bless it. It's not doom and gloom. I mean, we're human beings. We've been honest. We've spoken about the reality of temptation. We've spoken about the reality of lust. And there's a lot of people who are Christians who've done things before marriage and are married and things are going well. But
can God still bless it?
Aye, I would say so. But I think
okay. God can still bless it, but what needs to happen in order for God to bless it, even though they've had sex?
Yeah, there needs to be repentance. So that was the last bit of my hang me before you chopped me off there, mate. I was coming to that. I think when we're living in a relationship or in that behaviour, we need to come to a place, and there needs to be change. Our mindset needs to shift, and we need to come for that. We need to repent. And that's God will be able to bless it then. But if we just live in that same situation where we just like, oh, there's no condemnation, Romans 8 verse 1, I can do whatever I want. Nah, that's not the reality.
I think particularly just for this question, we can also justify our actions by saying, well, I'm going to marry this person, so this is okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that's
it's justification.
It's justification for
to meet selfish needs.
Yeah.
Right, next question from Rachel Forsyth, one of our leaders. When dating, how quick should you take a relationship? For example, going from dates to then spending most of your time together without having sex.
Well, I mean, if you're dating, there's ideally no sex until you're married. Obviously, we spoke about that, but I think everybody's different. What's the balance of your life? Do you have lots of time? Do they have lots of time? You know, we're not saying there's anything wrong with spending time with the person you love. Spend as much time as you can and are willing to, based on how their life looks and how your life looks. I don't think there's any given.
I think that's where honesty really has to come, you know, out in what you're both looking for and what kind of drives or struggles you're having, you know. And just talking about it, and like David said, there's no time frame for it. I mean, we knew, so we got married sort of
14 months.
So you know, but like I say, we were a bit older, and we knew that this was something that God wanted for our lives, so we moved towards that. But I'm just thinking for sort of younger people, you know, it must be very hard because you're still young and you're still choosing your careers and different things. You've got different distractions, you know, whereas we're slightly older, we've kind of had all that and know what we don't want. So I'm just trying to think of it in a sort of helpful way for sort of younger. I think just being on the same page, you know, and just talking about, like I say, just talking about the struggles. I'm really frustrated. I'm really attracted to you. I want to be with you. Help me with this. Where are you at? I'm really struggling as well. Okay, you know, can we get someone else involved to help, you know, a pastor or someone who can sort of help us to try and stay away from each other physically, or, you know, I don't know. I think just being honest with each other about where you're at and where you're going.
Brilliant. Nash has came up with another great question for you both. Is it okay to live with someone before you get married to give you a chance to experience what your marriage will be like?
No. Cutthroat. The reason I would say
Good
that
question.
is a very good question.
Great question, Natasha.
It's a great question because I've lived with someone before and he wasn't a Christian and he was okay with it. So therefore I was okay with it, you know. So I'm not saying it from someone who's never lived with someone. But what I would say is living together, you're not looking for marriage after that because you're living together, you know, and I think there's a lot of things that are taken off the plate when you move in that direction, or certainly there was for me. I think as well, you know, it's, yeah, could just be again another bit of justification for.
I think as well when you live with somebody, you're gonna quickly compromise. Where are you gonna sleep? You're gonna come out the shower and walk about naked. Like, what's going to happen? So if we're talking about sex before marriage and how valuable sex is and waiting for marriage and stuff, and you're trying to avoid that, how quickly or how much more are you going to speed that process up if you're sleeping in the same bed? You're living under the same roof. And the reality is people will say, no, we'll live in the same, we'll sleep in different rooms. You might sleep in this different room the first night, but I guarantee you the second night, you'll be creeping in there when it's dark because you'll be getting that wee tingly feeling somewhere and you want to be getting close.
Toes, aye. Tingly feeling in your toes, aye.
A wee tingly feeling in your toes as you're creeping across the carpet. So I think if you're genuine about God and you're genuine about finding a wife or a husband, I wouldn't advise
it's not a great move, yeah.
Thank you, guys. We're going to wrap this up. We could speak all night. We're going to end with a couple more questions. Let's talk about pornography, all right? Because we're on the topic of sex. What's wrong with watching pornography?
I would imagine I'll get this one. I think probably majority of men would watch it, have watched it at some point in their life. I think for me, watching pornography, growing up, being younger and stuff like that, I think the world is screaming at us, and we're learning from media and Facebook and Instagram and all these types of things. And I think watching porn as well just totally distorts the reality of what it is to be in a godly relationship. Watching pornography is self-satisfactory. It's like a transaction. You put a screen on, you watch it for a couple of minutes, job done, game over, right? But when you're in a relationship with a real human being and they are wired a lot differently, and you need to know things, you need to know about them, you need to have the desire and want to participate. And I think if you've been watching porn for 15, 20 years, and it's just you've trained your brain to just to say that sex is one-way street. I watch a movie, a couple of minutes, it's finished. When you're sitting you're in a bed with your wife or you're married, that's what you're bringing to that marriage. So I think it devalues the sex, it devalues the human being, the woman. So I would, and it's a real hard thing for guys because there's that drive, there's that lust that's so easy to access.
Very addictive.
Very addictive.
You know,
That's the harsh reality.
It's in, you know, you've got a smartphone, it takes 2 seconds to access it. So you're really fighting against the tide. With pornography, it's easier to watch it than no watch it because it's temptation and it's hard to overcome temptation. But it's very damaging to a relationship. It's very damaging to your outlook and how you see the other sex.
A couple more questions, and I want Steph to answer this next one, right? So this is a popular question, particularly with girls. Question is my body normal?
Yes. Short answer. It is, you know, and I think that the only thing that can change is your own belief about your body, and this is the body you have and it's your normal. So when you compare it to someone else, it might seem it's different, but that doesn't make it not normal, you know. And I think that there needs to be a process for women, you know, as individuals, to be able to look at yourself, to look at your body and say, this is mine, this is my body, and this is what I've got, and stop wishing that you had this and you had that and things were different, you know. And I think there has to be a level of acceptance of what your body is. and just stop comparing yourself to them.
Brilliant. Last question, right? What do I do if I'm concerned about my friend's behaviour about sex?
I'd say write down what your problem, what your behavioural issues are, and see if you're willing to go and talk to them about it after that. You know, I think we're very quick to see other people's faults and see what other people are doing wrong.
Okay,
and
let me answer it. Let me ask it this way: what do I do if my mate's having sex and he's a Christian?
David,
I think you're well within your rights to challenge him, but I think when we challenge, you know, that's a biblical principle to challenge people when they're caught in sin. I think you could offer them accountability, but I think challenge them, bring it into the light. When things are brought into the light, it takes away the power. But I think when we challenge people as Christians, we need to make sure that we are walking right and that we have the integrity before we make the challenge. Because if we don't have the integrity, if we are sleeping with partner, but we want to challenge somebody else for sleeping for their partner, it just makes it just hypocrisy. It just makes us look like Pharisees and self-righteous people. So I think
there needs to be humility. I think if you're going to approach someone, it needs to start with humility. You know, you're not perfect, and you're not coming to them and saying I'm perfect and you're making mistakes. That's not how you approach them. So I would say, yeah, humility.
I think as well. I would also say it's probably none of your business at the same time. Like I mean, it's that person's journey. If they want to live like that, then so be it. Going back to the point that Steph made, focus on your own journey. There's a Bible verse in the Bible that says, focus on the own, like the plank of wood in your own eye. Stop trying to take the speck of dust out of the brother's eye.
People know when they're doing things that don't sit right with them, and that's what I mean about taking your own stuff to them and saying, this is what I'm struggling with. And maybe they can bear something with you as well, and it opens it up for discussion rather than you're doing something wrong, mate. You know, and that's what I mean. That's what I mean by
And I'm sure that they could find fault in your life. So
yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
Nobody's perfect, but I think approaching it from the angle of if you need help, we're here. You know, if you want to talk about it, if you want to change, if you don't want to change, then crack on and enjoy yourself. But if you want to make changes, then hopefully we can move together, forward together stronger.
Guys, thank you so much. That was fantastic. Talking a lot about rock solid relationships. And for everyone who's tuned in tonight, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Don't forget this Sunday at 3 o'clock on the Surge channel and the Beat YouTube channel, we have Surge Youth Church 3 o'clock with our very special guest, Stefan Sila, who's the youth pastor at Life Church Bradford. And don't forget, next Friday, we're back online for Real Talk TV. David and Steph Yacht, thank you so much for hanging out with us. You guys are welcome back anytime. You guys are officially patrons of the youth ministry here.
Mate, we're just as broken as everybody else, man. Just trying to share a bit of our experience. We just hope that something we've said tonight will help somebody.
Yeah.
Bless you guys.
The youth are saying that was amazing. So guys, God bless you. Have a great night, everyone. Peace.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.